Hello, everyone. Welcome to another expert session here at the Evolve Commerce Club. And I'm very thrilled to have a special guest and Evolve member who's a leading authority in the field of personalization and customer experience. Rasmus Houlind is a best-selling author, renowned speaker, and passionate evangelist for personalized marketing. Rasmus is the Chief Experience Officer at Agilic, where he drives the company's vision of delivering personalized experiences that truly resonate with customers. His extensive knowledge and innovative approach have made him a sought-after speaker and consultant in the industry. He's also the author of an influential book called Hello First Name, which we'll be discussing here today, and another book called Make It All About Me, co-authored with Colin Scherer. Is that correct?
That's true. Yeah.
Cool. And Rasmus provides actionable insights and practical frameworks that business can implement to enhance their customer engagement. Just before we start, I need to give a shout out to our sponsor, AirMeet, who makes all of these events, online events, possible for us. So, Rasmus, welcome to
Thank you
to our Evolve expert session. Thanks very much for this.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
No, of course, man. Of course. Let's start with the big picture. That's where I always start. So where do you come from? Why personalization? And yeah.
So the big why. Start with why. I think a famous Simon said that once. So I've been working almost for 20 years within digital marketing and personalization, and the first 10 years within agencies. Both for sort of building online presences and websites and corporate websites and e-commerce solutions and such. And I have full respect for what that requires. And then I was, but the latter half of my agency life, I was sort of pulled into what was by then called dialogue marketing, or which later became to be marketing automation. And the thing about not looking at a specific solution, not looking at the website or at the app or at the one solution, but instead looking at things from the end customer perspective. Like this thing about having a customer database where you had all kinds of insights about the customer and flipping that around and seeing that over a full customer life cycle. I think there was just something that clicked within me on that. So, and I just find that extremely interesting to find out how can we really adopt an omni-channel approach to all the things, all the personalized customer experiences that we are putting out there. So that led me into writing my first book, which came out in 2015. Second one, Make It All About Me, from 2019, which is basically a republishing, a refurbished, a modernized version of the old Danish one. And then this one from last year, Hello First Name. So I find that I really enjoy writing things down, and these books are born out of a frustration. I think so. Frustration. I mean, to begin with, at the agency side, because you always have the seniors promising stuff and doing visions and stuff, and then you have the juniors delivering it, and that's kind of why I got fed up with agencies. Though I know that, I mean, this is maybe being a bit harsh against agencies. Certainly good agencies exist. But so I was just curious to find out, what if everybody took it all the way? What if we delivered and we followed the visions and we implemented things that were the best in terms of personalization and in terms of omnichannel marketing? And that came to be the framework of my first book. So really trying to make people come to the same page and have the same notion and the same language about these complex topics. And that has kind of followed me ever since. I do enjoy putting that knowledge together.
Amazing. I'll start off. I sent you a guide, but I won't follow that.
Thanks, though.
I'll start off with I'll use the word fuck up, because it was a fuck up. A few years ago, I used a LinkedIn automation, right?
Yeah.
And I was at the time working for WooCommerce, which is an e-commerce. I had just joined the company. Like, it was even before my first day, and we had this event that we had to go in the Netherlands for Umbraco, because they were partners, and I'm sure you know the companies, right? So yes, Umbraco, and for God knows why, when I used the LinkedIn automation, I was representing WooCommerce, and for some reason I said hello, like first name. This is Carlos with Umbraco, and I'm joining the Umbraco event. And that message went to the founder of Umbraco at the time. He left the company. He sold the company.
Yeah.
And that was before my official day, but I was trying to speed up things so I could, hit the ground running when I arrived in the Netherlands at their event. Well, what happened was that the founder of Umbraco sent a message to my then CEO, my boss, and it wasn't a pretty thing because I had just been hired, yeah. And this is one of the things that happens with automation, right? I mean, that was a massive lesson from that day on. I tried to pay attention. I think it can be very helpful. However, those things happen. And so let's talk about the Hello First Name, the book, and some of the misses that you see in automation. And
I think that's why the title works, because everybody who has, most people have received an email or a LinkedIn message where someone messed up the syntax and it said hello first name or hi first name. So most people can relate to that. And quite a lot of marketers have been at the sort of sending end of that. Most marketers are working with direct marketing have sent one of those emails, and it's really embarrassing where you get either get the syntax wrong if you're working with poor automation systems, and then it says hello first name and it's so embarrassing. Or even worse, if it says like hello segment name. So if you're like hello big spender or something like that, and people didn't get remove it or do the brackets properly, so it draws up a lot of the feeling of shame, which is always a strong driver for having conversations. So if you can talk to people about something that's shameful, then you have everybody's full attention. So I think in that way, it's that's where the title comes from, and also to sort of point fingers at the ones who believe that if we just get hello first name right, then we're done with personalization, because that really isn't true. There's so much more to it.
Sweet. And so where do we start? Because your role today is as like the first time we spoke, you told me that you're doing what you really love, which is to be an evangelist, right?
Yeah.
And if Stefan, by the way, he's also an evangelist at SAS. So I find it a really cool role. I mean, you guys have to educate and probably read a lot and
we're living the dream, huh, Stefan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So as an evangelist, so what I do, my title is Chief Experience Officer. So I basically try to create experiences for prospects and clients and employees. So there's so I work at Agilic, which is a marketing automation software company. Obviously, it's the world's best, but I'm not here to sell it. So you have to take my word for it. And we find, and our competitors find, and our clients find that there's so much confusion on the topic of personalization. So if I ask people what it is, if they know what it is, then most people say yes. Yet if I then ask them to put down the first word that comes to mind when the topic comes up, then they put down completely different words. So it's really a matter of sort of gathering those types of aspects of personalization and putting that into a framework that makes sense for everybody, so that people can do these personalization projects without misunderstanding each other or without prioritizing the wrong things or expecting the wrong kinds of results. And that's kind of the idea with it. So we are struggling with explaining that to people because there's this confusion, and our clients are struggling to implement it properly because they are also misunderstanding each other. And the whole industry is, there are so many people saying that they're working with personalization, yet they're doing very, very different things. So it was kind of trying to educate not only our clients or our prospects or our employees, but also the market. And let's be the ones who sort of set the cornerstones for what is personalization really, and how can you have more meaningful conversations about this, and how can you make better projects and have better customer lifetime value and better results, basically.
And taking that as a segue to my next question, then what is personalization? Because one of the questions I sent you is we have today, I think, the latest study I saw from Martech Institute, over 10,000 solutions in the market, which causes paralysis. Is like going to a supermarket, you don't even know where to start, right? So
exactly,
I don't think there's I think like with all the VC movement, and I mean, we are definitely going to see more consolidation in the market, fewer tools. But
I don't think so. I don't think we'll see fewer tools.
You don't think so?
No. So if you follow Scott Brinker and Franz Riemersma, and just for the mention, so Scott Brinker and Franz, they're doing this MarTech map, which is the sort of overall map of all MarTech. And Franz is also one of my co-authors for Hello First Name. And if you look into their sort of keynote for how the MarTech landscape is evolving this year, actually they say yes, there is some consolidation taking place, but but it's outpaced by the advent of new vendors and new technologies. So yes, but so don't expect everything to sort of suddenly be like winner takes all mentality. I don't see that happening at all. Conversely, there's a more like a trend towards composability and best of breed, and really trying to sort of pick the products and the vendors that you need for solving your use cases or your business challenges in the best possible way. So that's sort of where things are going. Also, there's a tendency towards atomization. So you find more and more tools that are doing solving smaller and smaller tasks, but they plug together like small Lego bricks. So you build, so there's an atomization going on at a market level, but there's also an aggregation going on at a company level, which is really interesting thing to follow also in the whole e-commerce space.
Yeah, we have a composable expert, Jamie. He's probably going to be joining our asking you a few questions soon. Stefan, what do you see? I mean, SaaS also offers analytics solutions, and I wanted to have you here because you're representing a major vendor there, and you probably could ask Rasmus a few questions from your perspective.
Exactly. I think this topic is so super interesting to talk more around, and I guess that me and Rasmus could talk on forever. And I talk a lot around the experience economy. I guess, Rasmus, that you're very familiar around that topic, and it's actually for you others who are listening in, it's actually something that two professors from Harvard for more than 30 years ago talked about. When you are in a market where it's very easy to compare products and services, it's only those who are economically successful, those who can deliver an outstanding customer experience. That was what they talked about for more than 30 years ago. Even though a lot of things has happened since that, the world is completely changed, but it's more relevant than ever. And that's also why a company like Starbucks still can charge you like $7-8 or euros for a cup of coffee, since it's not just the service or the beans you're paying for, it's experience. And I still believe that the way to the customer's heart hasn't changed, and that's why we talk about personalization. But at the end of the day, customers expect you as a company to deliver the personalization part. But
yet they want full privacy.
but they aren't. So Rasmus, so what's your take on this? Because I'm still having the same conversations as I had like 10 years ago with the customer. Everyone wants to do this personalization, but they're not doing it. It's not that they don't want to do it. I believe it's a lot around upskilling and reskilling. They don't know where to start.
That's definitely one of the things. So I think that there are many things that are keeping companies from personalizing as they could and should. And as you say, it's not necessarily something new to talk about personalization. There's a book from 1936, which is called "How to Win Friends and Gain Influence" by Dale Carnegie. I don't know if you know that. It's first of all, I think it's extremely funny that he uses the term "win friends" because I mean that's not how I treat my friends. But he's talking about said that like there's certain principles that you should follow. First of all, there's a thing about being nice to people and remembering people's names, asking more than you are talking. And then generally talk about things that people are interested in as far as you can, and make people feel important. And if you look into what personalization is about, that's pretty much it still. So from 1936, it's almost 100 years ago, not much really changed in terms of what we're trying to achieve. What did change, however, is and also as you point out, Stefan, is the sort of the components of the customer experience, because clearly digital has almost become the primary way of interacting with the brands that you like and love. So a lot of the experience is now digital. Obviously, there's a product experience as well. And if your product is shit, and if you didn't get the product market fit right, or if your pricing point is totally off in the woods, then there's no reason to turn to personalization. So even though I agree with you that yes, in the experience economy, you need to do something that is sort of differentiating, that is sort of on top. But if you got all the other things wrong, then there's no reason to bother with personalization. So that's kind of one of the main topics. Is it the right time for your company to invest in personalization? First of all, do you have like your core business in place? So if your commerce system is broken and your category pages aren't working, and you have the wrong payment providers for the specific market, don't worry about personalization yet. You need to sort of fix the holes in the bucket from the bottom in order to make sure that it doesn't pour out. So fix the like your value proposition, fix the core engines and the cash register, whether it's online or not. Fix that first. Create traffic, create brand trust, create demand. Then look into data. How can we fix data? How can we leverage insights? How can we sort of manage that? How can we integrate different data sources to get a clearer understanding of the customer? And once you have sort of that, at least a plan for that, that's when you can start expecting to see some results when you go into working with personalization.
I believe as well that even though that most of us come from the retail industry, e-commerce space, we're still seeing, or I'm seeing at least for other industries as well, we can see the banking industry, for example, they're also struggling with the personalization. They want to have the same feeling as you get when you enter the branches, the offices.
Except you don't anymore.
So they're really struggling. However, the retailers, they have they like to experiment more. So in theory, they've come much further. But it's interesting to see other industries as well, how they are tackling.
But I think it's a problem for I think one of the things that are holding the finance industry back, and we're actually working a lot with finance at the moment, because they're sort of finally getting into the game. So in contrast to retailers, I mean, a lot of retailers, at least here after COVID has sort of passed away, they actually do have foot traffic in the stores, whereas I don't ever go to a bank anymore. So retail banking for me, at least, and in the Nordics, I would say, is almost 100% dead. So the only way that they can do a really good customer experiences is through digital. And I think finally finance is coming to terms with that. What has been holding them back, obviously, is the sort of zero error culture. So it's a highly regulated industry, and they're so afraid of being accused of white money laundering and phishing and all kinds of stuff. And security is really high because it is people's money that you're dealing with. So security, and they're so highly regulated. So that's the dominating mindset within finance. Everybody's so afraid of doing something wrong that actually sometimes they'd rather not just do anything at all. And let alone doing personalization, because if you then mix it up and you get people's first name wrong in an email, certainly the impact is crazy, because these are the people that are supposed to take care of your money. And if they can not get the first name right, how can I trust the fact that they are taking good care of my money? So it also means that there's a huge potential, because if you are then a finance institution and you do get this right. So one of my friends, Christian Peter, he's the head of marketing automation at the German bank Commerzbank. I actually believe they're a SaaS client.
Exactly.
So he was a guest on my podcast a few weeks back, and they've won awards based on actually how they are able to do, for instance, marketing automation. So there's a huge opportunity for the ones who dare go against sort of the stream here and do the personalization and get it right. It may take longer, it may be a bit harder, but it's a huge competitive advantage if you get this right in finance. It also is in retail, obviously, but I think there are more people that are have pushed it further.
What are your views, Rasmus, in regards to community today? For example, every person that I invite to speak here, I spoke with them on beforehand, and this is not scalable. But I see a massive opportunity for any brand. But it's really hard to get people to think like that, because 1 + 1 = 11 in my book. For example, I build trust with you. You start being part of my community. All of a sudden, you can refer me to other people, and it takes time. It takes time to build community. in that sense. And I would like to ask you, maybe it's not even a question, but more like your thoughts on personalizing experiences when you start with a small community. We are now today on I think 226, 230 people in my WhatsApp group, and it's getting harder. But everybody who joins me on stage here, they have to. That's the tax they pay. Like, we have a conversation beforehand just to see if we are aligned and if we have chemistry. Exactly. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think community is becoming so massive nowadays. It's like, it's also how you reduce your CAC, and you can have higher LTVs and so on.
So definitely building a community, or how can you say, as a brand, building a lot of brand ambassadors is a way to go, and that's a thing that can also be subject to personalization. So trying to figure out through all the data and the insights you have, which of your fans or your customers are the most engaged, and which are the ones that have maybe spent the most money with you and whatever. I know we're not talking about the Evolve Commerce Club here, but in general, as a brand, who's spending the most money with you, and who has the highest NPS scores or satisfaction scores, and leveraging those people by maybe or taking the ones who have, this is basically influencer marketing, the ones who have the biggest followings on social media and such, and taking sort of that, where those circles overlap, and getting them part of your launch programs or your VIP events or whatever. That's a great way to sort of help build the ambassadorship towards your brand. So that's one way of working with it. Apart from that, I think the communities exist out there without you controlling them or not.
That's right.
So the thing about putting people as a brand into sort of your forums or your platforms and having the discussions there and so on, I think that's extremely hard because people are out there on different social platforms. So if you really want to build communities, you need to go to where the communities maybe are already. Foster that and build on that, instead of trying to get people to be part of your community club or whatever. If you want to go that way, at least you need to be very, very adamant, and you need to do a lot of physical events. I mean, if it's a club, then it's something that I'm signing up for, and it becomes part of my identity. And for me to be that involved in a club, it needs to be pretty strong.
I understand. Tell me, can you tell us some examples of personalizations that what you're seeing in personalization that went right and wrong? Also, I think there was a podcast that I listened yesterday, and you were giving an example of a gym membership, right? And how you would start, like, I mean, it's completely different how you would implement personalization from like when you work for a gym, or if you're if you own a gym, to a fashion retailer and stuff like that. So
exactly, yeah. Maybe I could give the people a small introduction to the bow tie of personalization, which is basically the model from the book. As we'll see how how this works. Share screen. Can I then choose a window? I think I can. Okay, I need to get off full screen first. Hang on a second. All right. So I wonder if you still see it when I do full screen.
Yeah.
Do you see a beautiful bow tie? Yeah. So personalization is in fact what happens when you mix and match your insights together with your content, and you do that efficiently. So imagine you're going to a party, and then you don't want to be too heavy on the insights part. So if you know a lot about the customers, you have all your insights, you know who they are, you know what they're trying to do and whatever, but you don't have anything to tell them. So you're very weak on the content side. That doesn't bring any good personalization up either. And the contrary is true as well. So if you have a lot of content, but you don't know who to tell it to, then you'll be just seen as super annoying and noisy. So really you want to try and balance the insights together with the content. That's basically what personalization is about. So the idea is here that sort of your insights can be divided into two. And remember, this takes place before we're talking about channels. This takes place before we're talking about whether we're talking about the website or emails or TikTok or whatever. So this is something that's sort of above that at an omnichannel level, so to speak. So insights come in sort of two forms. You have your segments, which are sort of fairly static groups of customers or prospects. So that could be your demographic segments. So the segments you use to build your personas, for instance, could also be value-based segments. So like in high CLV or high propensity for like high potential customers or low potential customers. Those who have spent a lot of money with you, or those that you predict could be spending more money with you or whatever. So it can be based on demographics data, but also on transactional data and even probabilistic algorithms. Then you have the moments of truth, which are more sort of a picture of what's going on right now in the mind of the customer. What is happening in the lives of our customer database now? Who has now just left something in the shopping basket that they didn't buy for one reason or the other? Who should be making up their minds about signing up for a ticket subscription for the football club FC Copenhagen, for instance. So say that I bought tickets 3 times within the last month, and there are 2 home matches in the upcoming month. And that sort of, if you do the math, makes me in a moment of truth where I should be extremely interested in getting a ticket subscription because it will be good business for me. So that would be one such moment of truth. And obviously there'll be messages matching to that. So you have the content part here of the bow tie will be sort of a mix up of your creative messaging. So that's the content that you build as a marketer, that you create, that you write, that you use images for, and that you design stuff for. And definitely Gen AI can help with this. Then you have the content feeds, which would be your product feeds in the case of e-commerce quite often. Could also be your Trustpilot rankings, or it could be your how-to articles, or it could be user-generated content video for a specific product or whatever. So all kinds of content feeds. And the idea here is that in the customer journey where there's most at stake for the customer and most at stake for your company, where there's money to get or there's satisfaction to be made, then you should try and consider how you can involve all 4 corners of the bow tie here. So that's the idea. And I'll give you an example from fitness, as you were mentioning before. So say that you have so a very important moment in the customer journey for health club operators or for health club owners, that would be when people become too inactive. So say that you're getting a bit too comfortable in the couch and you are sitting there, you're eating a lot of crisps, and every day there will be some people who are a bit too comfortable in the couch. And if you've done your propensity modeling and your churn analytics and whatever, you'll see that if people have sort of been inactive for 2 weeks or more, the risk of them canceling their subscription goes up like crazy. So this would be a moment of truth that is, first of all, important for the members because, I mean, they should be more healthier versions of themselves. It's also pretty important for the health club operators to actually fix this. But you have different people in these segments. Of course, you have the young men, for instance, who want to get buff and get real big and look good on the beach and whatever. But you also have people like, for instance, my mother here. So this could be Tove, who's my mother. So she's 75 and she's working out to stay healthy and fit and to not break a leg if she falls over, not to break her hip, and to be able to climb the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment and to pick up her 10 grandchildren on a cargo bike. So not at once, obviously, but 1 or 2 kids at a time. So the message, the reactivation message that you'd use for her as opposed to the young man would be totally different. So they're sharing the same moment of truth, but Tove doesn't need a get buff quick message. She needs more like a health-oriented message, which is really about staying healthy or getting healthy and how to get strong bones and how to stay flexible and so on. And the content feeds that you sort of use in those touch points would be totally different classes than you'd suggest to the young man. So she'd be like more into yoga and more sort of soft exercises and classes than would be the young buff guy. So in this moment of truth, really try and consider all 4 corners of the bow tie of personalization here. And then the idea here is that if you then look at the bow tie of personalization, you can sort of see different use cases for working with personalization. So either you're working with your campaigns, which is really a matter of sort of matching your segments with your messages. So now it's, I don't know, let's say it's summer here in Northern Europe, summer break is coming and the kids are leaving on vacation actually on this Friday. So we want to communicate different things to different segments based on this occasion. So the ones who have kids, for instance, will get a different messaging, or the ones who have a garden will get different messaging. So depending on the segments, we'll be talking about our campaigns in different ways. And then if you sort of look across here, looking more at not what segments people are, but what's going on in their lives, really trying to figure out their intent of what their intent maybe should be, and matching that up. So that's mostly built on behavioral data, matching that up with the right message. That's really a term. That's when it comes down to marketing automation. That's when you'll be focusing on that. And if you're working on your website or your app, I guess basically you might want to start personalization later. But where most people start, because I mean, you want to fix the basics first, also as we spoke about before. So you need to make sure that you have the right content for your key segments and to solve the tasks that they need. And you can browse by that, and the navigation structure is good, and there's a search functionality that works. But when it comes to personalization, then it's very much a matter of sort of actually putting the right shelves of products in front of the right person. So, so if you ever shopped in a supermarket where you're not usually shopping, you know that it takes sort of forever, and that's not because they sorted the milk wrong. It's because they sorted the shelves in another way than you're normally used to. So, really, when you're working with personalization on the website, and especially on the top category pages and on the homepage and so on, make sure that you put the most meaningful shelves of products or articles or content feeds in front of the right people in the right order, and that they have sort of meaningful headlines on them. That's where you start with that. So that's sort of a boil down to how personalization looks from a top level.
This is amazing. And this is, you boil down how many years of knowledge there?
20, I'm afraid to say, but I like 20, including all the people that were sort of in my expert panels and in my expert groups. So we did a lot. I think it's the product of like 100 people that are put together in expert panels, and that we discussed this with, and how do we do this? Where should we focus? And that's basically what the book is full of examples of.
Sure. I think one interesting aspect of that, of what you were showing, for example, the gym example, I think it's amazing, right? That you go to a gym, and then you also have the different times where people go and do their exercise. I used to be a pure gym member, very close to my place.
Don't go at
sometimes
5 p.m.
like you would, when I hit the gym at 5:45, 6 a.m., you would just see like some elderly people. So they definitely have one need, right? And then 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., like the prime times, you have these guys who want to be really puff and stuff like that. So, but when it comes to other industries, and I think it's amazing, but some people there's so many interesting stories on personalization. Like I heard a story of, I think it was Target, I don't know. They started showing on a feed, of a lady that she, baby stuff, and I think her parents. Have you heard of the story? Her father got really annoyed that. But she was
the
pregnant.
old example from Target.
Yeah.
So I think the story goes that so this particular customer of Target, she'd been buying certain things, and the algorithm came up with, wow, she's probably pregnant, so we'll suggest her these sort of very pregnancy related products. And but she was a minor. She was like 16, 17 years old.
That's right.
And her father somehow got the notion of her having received these sort of vouchers for these particular products, and he was super annoyed with them. And he was, so he was very upset by this, and he called them and he made a complaint. And how would they even dare suggest that his minor daughter was pregnant? Turns out she was, which is, they probably weren't sure, because sometimes you buy stuff for other people or whatever, but she was pregnant. And that's how the story goes. At least it's almost like an urban myth because it's so old. And the reason, or how they solved this actually was to, and this is a suggestion also for how you solve these sort of maybe a bit picky situations here. So they watered down the recommendations. So for instance, so in their primary message, they might put in like an offer for bananas.
Right.
So a thing that everybody could use. And then sort of below that, but with small, then they'd have these sort of pregnancy related things that maybe it seems like they're by coincidence, but really they're totally for a reason. So the distinction between what I call explicit personalization, which is, wow, you must be super pregnant, buy this and your baby will be good, versus, oh yeah, this week's theme in the newsletter just happens to be like pregnancy related products. We're not saying you why, we're telling you what we're telling you, but it's still the insight that we're putting it on, but we just don't want to sort of step on anyone's toes or insult anyone.
Very nice. So here we have Jamie now. Jamie is a
Rasmus.
Hi, Jamie.
Industry veteran. Jamie, welcome. Go ahead, man.
No, I just found what Rasmus was saying about Target fascinating, because I lived some of, not that exact scenario, but a number of things that those e-com clients suffered in those early years.
Yeah.
Because Target was an IBM customer. Yeah. And I had UK customers suffering the same problem, where the definition, and I loved your statement, Rasmus, about, how old personalization actually is. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah. And it makes me think of some of that early buzz in the sort of the late 90s, early 2000s, when everyone thought personalization was going to change the world. And actually what it was collaborative filtering. Yeah. And it was all about rules engines. And it wasn't personalization. It was, let's create rules. And that's partially what Target was suffering. Yeah. These rules engines firing off a set of rules and using the wisdom of crowds, which we know is so essential now, but actually without the understanding of the industries. Right. And of course, what happened was, a number of these things are disastrous. The analogy I used to give in the early days with e-com was, my son loves David Beckham. He absolutely adores him. That's who he wanted to aspire to be. And everything I bought online would effectively end up saying that I was madly in love with David Beckham. I would get sent everything about David. I have no real interest whatsoever. But the joy of personalization not going the way you want it to.
It doesn't mean that marketing stuff with David Beckham to you is the wrong thing, because you might be buying stuff for your kid. So, but it's just and this is where we also distinguish between what you might call deterministic data and probabilistic data. Yeah. So what can we actually infer from the data? Which insights can we sort of be certain of? And which do we sort of have to take with a grain of salt and maybe use more sort of implicit in the way that we're communicating directly to people? So say that you're within finance, for instance, and you are, because we discussed this early on, and you sort of the click patterns from my account and the bank statements and whatever may say that I'm going through a divorce, which I'm not, by the way, just to make things clear. So they could have the notion that there could be a model saying, okay, Rasmus is probably going through a divorce here. He and his wife is. So should they sort of be explicit about that? Looks like from your browsing patterns, you're probably going through a divorce. Here's how to sort of handle your economy when you're going through a divorce. So I would be extremely offended by that if I hadn't told them explicitly, because I mean, get out of my hair, so to speak, get out of my life and mind your own business, please. I'll let you know when we're having a conversation about divorce, because it's a topic that is dear to me and I'm maybe super sad about. So again, implicit versus explicit here is a really good sort of distinction. And I would argue, though, to your point, Jamie, that the collaborative filtering is an act of personalization. It may not be the best one, it may not be individualization or whatever, but it's still a better treatment than the average. So, and that's basically what sort of, at least my definition on personalization is, that if you're giving people a proposedly better experience by providing different services or content to them based on your insights into their sort of implicit or inferred preferences, no matter how vague that is, it's still an act of personalization. So by choosing maybe not to communicate a lot with certain customers, they are also being personalized to. They will never notice because you're not communicating to them at all, yet it's still a personalized customer experience.
Yeah. And actually that sort of leads me on to one of the questions I've got for you is sort of when you made a statement very early on about this overlaying of personalization on a bad situation doesn't solve the situation, simply put. Yeah. And one of my biggest bugbears is being a technician at the core. Is everyone believes technology will solve everything. Now, fundamentally, technology can, but the problem you have is that the philosophy of yes, it can fix everything and just don't worry about it is stupid.
Yeah, I get to see the personalization that personalizes itself.
Exactly, and I think your bow tie example is wonderful, because one of the things I'm doing at the moment is putting together some simple articles on composable, because it's an overused term.
Yeah.
But in your thoughts, now, one of my thoughts on composable is that it's a design philosophy. It's a complete philosophy. You start right at the top in the clouds, in the ether, and you think about what does composable or a composition mean to me. Forget everything else. Forget the technology, the outcomes, all those sort of things. Just lose it and start at the top. And what are your thoughts on personalization? Coming back to that, doing it wrong. Do you feel personalization should start up here as part of those design principles, or is there somewhere where you think it's optimal to bring in that thought about personalization?
Yeah. So where to start answering that? So first of all, I think in its purest form, and where personalization really scales, is when you've solved what I call the content crisis. Because you can have sort of predictive analytics working for you in terms of defining the customer insights, as in both the segments and the most truth, if you have real-time data transfers and whatnot. You can also have predictive analytics put together your rankings of your product feeds and even the products within those. And that's been working for us for quite a while. But really having the sort of creative content, having that scale is a thing that many companies are struggling with. So, and remember, just because we had a lot of issues with data, and thus a lot of the data people are running the personalization projects, if you don't have any content, there is no personalization. So really looking into how we, first of all, produce our content for an omni-channel reality to begin with, as opposed to sort of build the content into all the specific channels to begin with, but really sort of have that message going for you and have that created at an omni-channel level, and being able to distribute that through any channel where you might meet the customer. So that distribution engine, having that in place, so the production, the whole way that you produce it, and the timing and the whole production value chain on this, and the way that you can be able to distribute this across channels. That's one of the that's where you should start, but that's not where most companies start, so to speak. Because most people start, or most companies start with the three disciplines that I showed you before. So I'm a website manager or e-commerce manager. What should I focus on? Oh, let's take the e-commerce side because that's in my title. And then you start personalizing whatever you can there. And I'm not saying that this is wrong, but these sort of I would call them, or if you're doing advertising, then there's also some personalization in that. And obviously that's where you start. If you're in email marketing or marketing automation, you start by doing maybe the first name and whatnot. And the idea is that you can get to a certain level from sort of that in discipline approach with this, but you'll hit a glass ceiling at some point where suddenly you cannot make this scale further. And that's where really you need to start switching into working at an omni-channel level, so focusing more on what's happening in the customer lifecycle right now, and really getting that message that would help the customers get to where they want faster in place at an omni-channel level, and then sort of do the orchestration afterwards. I don't know if it answers your question, but it was a long answer at least.
Yeah, it does to be honest, because it is, I always feel very strongly that many of these, what I'll say is first principles, should be thought of at the beginning and at least discussed. Yeah. And like you're saying about the e-com manager, I spent my whole career in that space, and how often I will talk to a head of e-commerce or whatever, and they'll say, what's personalization to me? I need better promotions. Yeah. And you sort of scratch your head and they say, yeah,
not wrong, but it's not everything.
Yeah. Promotions is one of the things that sits in that bucket, but what else do you think about? And of course there's so much invested time in these designs sometimes.
And I think it comes down to also what you define as value. I mean, from a company point of view, value is easy. So it's always about money now or money later. Yeah. So how can I maximize revenue now without jeopardizing revenue in the future? or if you are sort of in the long term thing, how can we sort of establish a foot in the door and get a customer relationship that we then capitalize on later. So depending on your business strategy and your funding situation, there will be different approaches to that. However, from a customer point of view, what gives you value as a customer? So if you're at the receiving end of personalization, obviously having the right offer or the next best offer or the offer that is sort of giving me value, so I save money or I earn money or I get points or whatever, like economic incentives, that is a strong thing, and we shouldn't be oblivious of that. So not trying to belittle that in any way, just pointing out the fact that this isn't everything. So there can be sort of functional value as well. So say that I just bought makeup from a beauty retailer, which I never did before. I bought other stuff with them. Maybe they should hold it with the campaigns and the extra offers and teach me how to put on the perfect makeup. And how do I do that? And how do I make the best of the product that I just bought? And I have a terrible example of how I just bought a GoPro 11 camera, and 1 week after, GoPro was marketing to me GoPro 12. Now it's here, come buy it. And I was like, fuck, I mean, can you give me a minute to enjoy the camera that I just bought, which is probably fine for my needs, by the way. So functional is one thing. Then there's experiential. How can we just, with the communication, give people an experience that is helpful or giving or just nice or entertaining even? So that's also a way of providing value. Or there's the sort of the social value about as well, which is a way of sort of making me feel better as a person, giving me good conscience. I just donated to a charity. How can you give me, can I be rest assured that money is sort of well spent and that it goes to the right cause and so on? So giving me social capital, for instance, so I feel like I'm a part of the group or I'm doing good. So that's another way. So thinking about all those four aspects when you are trying to deliver value through personalized communications. I think that's undervalued and often overlooked.
Makes sense. Well, one last question from me, and it comes back to you talking about atomization.
Yeah.
Obviously, my passion for e-com and composable is sort of the obvious here. But one of my biggest bugbears is e-com is not retail. And so many people get sucked into the fact that e-com is retail. And obviously this whole evolution of composability, you know, I spent hours and hours and hours mapping out functions that sit within e-com, which can be completely isolated and almost turned into microservices. But more importantly, for multiple industries, as you highlighted about finance and all these other things, you know, there's pieces of these puzzles that can make up some absolutely fantastic solutions.
Yeah.
In your mind, or in your view, based on your experience, are there specific atoms in personalization, if you were going to put them into a broader holistic picture, that you would say are must-haves, that you would start to build some sort of composition from, if you were throwing in other pieces, like a basket, a cart, and a product, and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, there are. So trying to distinguish here between what you might call the e-com stack versus the personalization stack. Yeah. Right. So we won't be mentioning like order management systems and the commerce systems by themselves. So if we sort of do that first. So I think so depending on how large your database is, so say that you have a fairly small customer database, but you have a lot of traffic on the website. So a lot of anonymous visitors. So basically what you'd probably start out with would be the product recommendation engine. That's where most people start. And that sometimes also includes like product discovery for your search functionality as well. So sometimes the tools do these two. So basically a category view is a search. It's basically a search results page. So that's one thing. Some of these also do retail media. So if you're selling placements to different suppliers and you're giving them, for instance, a category captainship, so that's one thing that could work there. Then I would say quite often you see a lot of people asking for consent and for email signups. And there are platforms that do this better than others. So it's like overlays and popovers and pop-ups and whatever. And the best ones have deployed a lot of gamification tactics to actually make it fun, to make it engaging, to have like small games. And so I would probably fit that in the stack as well. Then once you have people on board and you have the first order maybe, and keep in mind that throughout sort of the funnel towards the checkout page, you'll have seen many different sort of ribbons or different shelves of products that either match the basket or match the particular product that you're looking at, or that match all kinds of other places that you sort of are in the funnel here. I would look into that. I might also look into so that there are some tools for on-site insights capture. So a fairly new platform which is called Made with Intent. .ai. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's one of the best startups in the UK, Made with Intent. So I actually came to know David Mannheim, who's the founder of that. He used to do a lot of CRO in the past. I came to know him because he also wrote a book about personalization. So in fact, he wrote the foreword for Hello First Name, and I wrote the foreword for The Person in Personalization, which is his book. It's kind of fun. So it's almost like a personalization love story, bromance. and a full disclaimer, I also invested in his company. So that's a full on thing. So that's one thing. So you can get immediately an idea of, okay, so people who are at this page, they may not all share the same intent. So some of them will be high intent users, and we need to treat them differently than the low intent users. So all the ones that make it to the basket, that's very fine. We do abandoned basket tactics, and we do retargeting for those. But how about all the ones who also explicit high intent behavior, but don't necessarily end up putting something in the basket? Should we do something with them as well? Yes. How about the 98% that don't end up converting? Should we annoy them with all the scarcity tactics, and there's only 2 left and 10 people are looking at this product right now, where they're really in an inspiration phase, that just becomes super annoyed with sort of these scarcity tactics? So that's another tool that you could look into. Then I would be looking into obviously having a good marketing automation platform in place. And maybe even with the CDP, if you are struggling to, I think Made with Intent sort of could do as a CDP for some. If you want to go more composable and high-end, you probably would choose something like Telium, for instance, which is a pretty high-end stuff, but really cool platform. And then the marketing automation platform, which is where you'll be sending out your communication to people, so you're reactivating them when they're not on the website. And obviously, you can do that through retargeting on advertising, but that's just so expensive. And Temu bought all the inventory, so there's really no getting through. The prices went up like crazy. So really the cheapest way that you can re-engage people is through sort of outbound communications, such as email, obviously. So in your campaigns and also in your marketing, in your automated communications. So that would be a pretty important system of record in that as well. I think that those were the systems that I'd start with, to be honest.
Cool. Thank you.
Great. Gustavo, he runs the community with me. He's co-creating this community, and he has probably a few questions. Welcome, Gustavo.
Hi, hello. Welcome.
Hi, Gustavo. Pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, how are you? So yes, I would like to ask about this. How much do you think, if so, this cookies limitation will affect this market of personalization for, especially for ads, right? So
yeah.
If so, if this will affect him, how much?
I think it already has. So I mean, even though Google has postponed the death of the third-party cookie for some times now, I think it will die. On the other hand, other sort of identity staging technologies have been sort of invented and put in place. So I don't think sort of the tracking of anonymous visitors is necessarily dying just because the third-party cookie is. So I think that will still be sort of a thing that survives. However, we've already seen a huge change in the way that people are treating third-party versus first-party data. So think back like 7-8 years maybe, there was a thing called a DMP. Do you remember that? So a data management platform which was for audience data and third-party data, and that category has almost ceased to exist. So no one at their full wits would put together a business case for trying to buy a DMP today. So that died. Instead, we have the CDP, which is more about first-party data. So indeed, there's a huge change from relying on in-market behavior and third-party data towards gathering and setting up your own data set on first-party data by a combination of zero-party data, where you are asking people, customers, clients, visitors about their intentions and what their preferences are and what they think and so on. And then you have obviously the marketing automation platforms, which would probably be one of the most important journey orchestration tools on top of that. So first-party data is more important than ever. New tools are trying to sort of fix the gap between your unknowns and your knowns, and they're becoming better at that. But I think in general, for personalization, I think this is a good thing, because the personalization that you'd then sort of be receiving will be built on first-party data, and it will be less vague, and it will be sort of, I mean, there was a lot of dubious shit going on with people buying in-market segments that were potentially a bit better than the other segment and whatnot, but really it was not sound, and it didn't really get any close to people. So the person in personalization was truly dead there. Whereas the doubling down on first party data, and even the sort of the GDPR or the CCPA, all these consumer protecting acts have actually made it a sort of a priority for companies to comply with these things. And that means that they just are so much better at managing the first party data today. And the first party data is just so much better when it comes to personalization. So I think it's a good thing. It's a long answer, but I hope it makes sense.
Oh, great. That's great.
Rasmus, someone asked me here, it was actually Raphael asked us can you share your presentation, your beautiful presentation?
Yeah, let me do that. Yeah,
cool.
I'll share a few things. So maybe a few words on that. So I will, and we can make. I don't know if you do a show notes or anything, or we just distribute in the WhatsApp group. But there's, I mean, I can share a written abstract of this that people can download. There's also a podcast called Hello First Name. So remember the $sign before the first name, and you search for that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or I think most podcast services will have that. So I just recorded the 2 last chapters as audiobook chapters, so you can actually listen to it all for free if you like. And I have so every other episode isn't an audiobook chapter; it's a discussion of the previous chapter with some kind of practitioner in the field. So I invite you to have a look at that, and I also send a link where people can download the like the models and the illustrations too, and that's the whole point of this. So really, I want people to be using the illustrations, so they already tomorrow they sound more knowledgeable about the term personalization than their colleagues. So that's really that. You don't have to read the book; you can just use the models.
There's another question here, which is, what's your take on online chatbots, and if they will replace customer support now with the advancement in AI?
Yeah, I think they'll replace 80% of the questions that you have in customer support. So all the simple questions will be answered by a bot, and like for now. So let me give you an example. I was what brand was it? So I don't remember which brand, but I was in a customer service situation the other day where I was writing with a bot, and I was, it was so bad, and it kept asking me stuff that I already told it, and I was like, "Can I please talk? Can you bring a human online?" And somehow they put in sort of an escape on that, so there was like a loophole that I could actually get out and talk to a real person. So for now, I'd really prefer talking to a person in the chatbot, because I generally find that the chatbots cannot help me unless like I have a really simple thing, but then I probably already found the answer on the website. But I realize maybe people come up with a lot of stupid mistakes and stupid questions, and those can be answered by a chatbot. So that is but that's coming better. So I'm looking forward to the point where the chatbot actually knows my full history, knows everything about me, and has that sort of top of mind, which no customer service agent might even be able to. So I'm looking forward to the day that I'll be putting in the chat, "Can I please talk to a chatbot? Because this person that I'm in discussion with is just giving me rubbish. Can I please talk to a bot?" I don't see that happening right now, but it's definitely the direction we're going. But it's probably going to be a bit like self-driving cars. So we've had self-driving cars almost for quite some years now, but we don't have them, right? So I still need to stay sober, or partially sober at least, in order to drive my vehicle home. So we're still not there, right? And also I think we can go on sort of seeing this progression towards the chatbots taking over for quite a while, until they finally take it over 100%. And the same goes for Gen AI with personalization. I mean, you can get so far and you can create much more. You can do it faster, blah, blah, blah. Would I let it run on autopilot yet? Probably not. I still want people to sort of QA the material and the content that's out there. Or the pictures of people from the gym will continue to have like 3 hands on the bench press bar, and they'll have the bar behind the head and so on. So yeah, true story.
Sweet. Rasmus, we just hit an hour now. Question: What do you thought of this format? Because it's not a podcast, as I said, it's more like a conversation.
Yeah, I love it.
And then I invite my friends now, like people that I haven't even met like in person, but they attend to these events. What do you thought of it?
I think it's fun. Yeah, and I like the fact that we are multiple voices, and it's like a conversation. I think that's really good, and also the option of maybe showing a few slides, so sort of to spice up the discussion based on something that someone took care to actually craft. I like that as well.
Fantastic. So if our members and people who are not members, because we are also live on LinkedIn, but who have the real opportunity to interact here with you, are members only, how can they find you? What's the best way to find you? Also, would love to help you, get some speaking gigs out there, maybe in the UK,
definitely.
maybe Brazil, some kite surfing. You're a kite surfing fan, right?
Yeah, I'd really like to go back to Brazil. It's been a while. So, obrigado. So I would, I'm probably easiest to catch on LinkedIn. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So hook me up there, Rasmus Houlind. You see my name here on the screen. So I'm pretty open for connections. I am working at Agilic, and we are selling, the world's best marketing automation platform in the world. But I'm doing speaking gigs sort of in my own company. So if you're working for a company where no one gets a shit about what personalization is about, and you have a budget to fly me in as a speaker, and we can have that conversation, definitely. So that's those are some ways that we can collaborate. If not, then if you interact with me on the posts and the stuff that I share, and just the discussions alone, it's really bringing a lot of value. There's nothing that I love more than sort of just hearing about people who genuinely found the content useful. I'll share a small anecdote if we have the time for that. I was recently talking at an event in Norway, and there was this guy. He approached me and he said, "Listen, we met before. Come here, please. I got one of your first books in 2015, just when it came out, and I put it on the shelf. I flipped through it and so on. But then a few later, when I had to sort of prepare for a job interview, I took your book out of the shelf and I prepped like shit, reading through the books and sort of internalizing all the points. And I got the job. And the person who hired me, she's also here at the event. And so I had a photo taken, and he was so happy because some of the content that I wrote changed his career. And stories like that just makes it worth everything. Every moment that I sit up there in the night writing the content. So
amazing. Congrats. Well, amazing to have you here today, and to have you in our group as well. So that was it. Thank you, Rasmus.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thanks, Rasmus.
Yes.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.
So I'll end the session now. Pause session.